I was looking at the monitor and looking at the how do I look on camera, this kind of thing. And I had to force myself to erase those thoughts from my head because I had to remember that I wasn't me on set. I was a vessel for White Rat. I was a vessel for every character. I am the vessel. This is not me.
Hi, I'm Alex DeLerma, and this is the Cinema Gym. If these videos are helping you and you want to see some more, please like, subscribe, comment. Let's keep this thing going. You are the perfect guy to talk to about this subject. Transitioning from a stage to screen. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience was like and if there were any bumps in that transition and how you got over those speed bumps?
Absolutely. Well, before I got into television and film, I was engaged in a lot of theater. So the first production I did was The Lion King, the Broadway production, but I was a part of the London cast. And then after that, I worked with English National. I did a year's run of a production called Aida. Yeah. I did lead in a production called The Mahabharata, which was held at Sadler's Wells. It first started to transition when I signed with the commercial agency and I started doing television commercials and this and the other. But the actual transition into television was quite abrupt. And there was very little transitional, there was basically not a transitional period from the theatrical world into television. Like I went into my first major casting for a television show was Game of Thrones.
Wow.
And I booked it. Yeah. So, it's not like I had 6 months to understand the world of television as opposed to the world of theater. Like I was literally thrust into it. In theater, you use physicality a lot to bring the audience along with you in terms of indicating the emotion, in terms of explaining to them not necessarily what's happening in the storyline, but what the character is feeling. So your actions are a lot bigger. In television, you have to trust that you're sending those same signals and sending the same energy, but in a minuscule format. So through your eyes or, through micro gestures in the face, etc.
Yeah.
And there was one thing that happened on the set of Game of Thrones, which kind of sped up my understanding right away of what it meant to work on camera in film and television as opposed to theater. And basically, it was something very simple. I was walking down an alleyway. This was the shot before I went into the brothel. My character's name was White Rat, and I got killed in the brothel anyway. Before walking into the brothel, the director's note was just look around you and take in your environment. And I did something. My head movement was too big. To the untrained eye would have been, yeah, that's fine. But for him, it took the director out of the naturality of the world. So it became a lot bigger than it needed to be. And he slammed, I think he was sitting at a desk and he was like, don't do that. And I was like, I knew exactly what I did. My head movement was a little bit, and immediately I was like, I got you.
That's such a great story, and it's good for people, not only entry-level actors to camera, but even intermediate actors who maybe have done a number of co-stars. And then, you get your first guest star and you're like, you get ramped up with adrenaline as though you're in the big game. And giving it the college try in acting doesn't give you the same result that you get in athletics, just the opposite. So the best thing that I tell my actors who I coach is think in terms of working more internally and less externally. Exactly. Do all the same preparation you would do for a play, for whatever. It's all the same preparation, but you have to exercise a different muscle so that you are working internally. Yes, and then that translates into what you talked. Micro expressions, maybe talking in your lower register,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm talking to you right now. Before I was up here, because I tend to get excited, and I'm up in my upper register, which is fine for this podcast. It may not be appropriate for a part that I got cast in.
Yeah.
And when we get excited, where does our voice goes up here?
Exactly. Yeah,
Sometimes it goes up there out of excitement because I get to talk to Marcos James. And I remember that scene in Game of Thrones, and I was shocked how he got killed. And that's a good excitement.
yeah, of course.
The bad excitement is like, oh shit, I got to do good.
Exactly. Yeah. So
And then you go down that alleyway, it's
yeah.
that.
So
It's-
in film and television, what I learned is that you have to stay out of your head as much as possible and allow the character, the energy of the character, to use you as a vessel. In which case, you're just allowing yourself to be and just reacting and moving through the situation and after understanding the character and the situation and doing all that prep work, of course. But then once you're in the situation on film and for film and television or on camera, it becomes conversational. It becomes more of, even if it's a dramatic scene when you're interacting with your co-star, the person watching is close to you, so it becomes like a very close exchange of energy with that group of people or that one person. In theater, you're transmitting that energy to a vast array of people in one sitting, and so you have to be a little bit bigger with your movement.
And you're filling the space.
And you're filling the space.
Right.
But for film and television, you just have to be and trust that your energy is enough to transmit the information that you're transmitting. Of course, you have to understand what that energy needs to be, but then you just need to trust and just be in the scene and in the space.
You mentioned staying out of your head a moment ago. Is there anything that you do to help you stay out of your head?
Yes. One of the exercises that I do is, I'm not sure if you're going to expect this answer, but I go back and I watch my show reel every few months.
What's wrong with that?
And the reason I do that is because when I'm on set, I understand that I have done really good work. And I watch my show reel to remind myself that I am very capable of replicating what I have already done.
That's so
And
great.
therefore I am enough. So that's it. I do the same with my self-tapes. The self-tapes that I've booked jobs with, or even some that I have done that were really good, that maybe I didn't get booked for that job. I go back and I watch them and I was like, actually, that's pretty good. And then I watch another one. I was like, too much, a little bit too much in the eyes, a little bit too, that expression before that comment was a little bit too prepared. It didn't feel natural. So I actually analyze my work, and I reaffirm to myself that what I have done is really good and that I can replicate it, and I assess what needs to be worked on, and that's how I kind of stay out of my head.
That is so fantastic. I'm so glad you shared that, because this name, the Cinema Gym, it comes from my Cinema Gym acting studio. And the point of it was integrating the technology with the actors. And at the end of each month of the scene study on camera, they would be forced to watch their audition, their callback, sometimes a little bit of the rehearsal, and then the edited final scene on a very big screen. In fact, the two guys running cameras right now were directors and then they had to work with directors too, not just me. Film students, and it was like torture for so many of these actors. Why do we have to do this part? I go, this is the best part. Why are you uncomfortable? Well, I'm just not comfortable looking at myself. Actors are uncomfortable because they don't like the performance or
they don't want to not like the performance.
They don't want to not like it. Interesting.
Yeah. So they have a fear of acknowledging that there's something wrong with it. Because sometimes it's easier to just let it go and just, what animal sticks their head in the sand? Is it the
Right, the ostrich.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's that kind of thing.
It's better, right? The other thing too is sometimes it's just attached to ego. You see yourself. This happened to me as a young actor, and I went, "What? No, I'm better looking than that." I was like, oh, no, that's you.
Interesting.
And it was a great lesson because I went, wait a minute, why am I worried about that?
I have a story for that.
Was it a good performance? And guess what? The next time I saw myself on screen and I nailed it, the performance, I didn't even think to worry about what my hair looked like, or is my scar coming through here, or my nose too big, or
exactly.
You know.
I'll tell you something
Please,
as well.
tell me.
So before I mentioned working in doing commercials.
Yeah.
You know, so I was doing mainly theater and commercials before film and television. So I was working a lot as a commercial model. So I was very accustomed to being judged specifically and solely for aesthetics and physicality. And so I took that energy into film and television. And so there were some projects, you know, hate to admit this, but even in Game of Thrones, like I was looking at the monitor and like, you know, looking at the you know, how do I look on camera, this kind of thing. And I had to force myself to erase those thoughts from my head because I had to remember that I wasn't me on set. I was a vessel for White Rat. I was a vessel for this, every character. I am the vessel. This is not me. And so that's something that I've personally had to work on over the years in terms of eliminating the ego, basically.
Right.
And just allowing yourself to be unattractive on camera, to be, you know, looking in a way that maybe you don't want to see yourself as, even in terms of the character itself. But
I'm glad that you added that to what we're talking about. I'm not talking about watching yourself on set, on playback, although that's a necessity if you're also the director, which I've done. And it's hard to act and direct. I'm talking about afterwards. It's essential. And when I get challenged with that, I'll say, do you know any painter that doesn't look at a canvas they painted? You are the canvas, and your emotional range are the colors, the palette. You know, but you're a human canvas that you're painting on with emotion. And then I'll also hear, well, I read that this movie star says he never watches himself. And my answer to that is, if that movie star is well established, like a Gene Hackman, rest in peace, I'm sure at a certain point he's like, I don't need to look anymore. I'm good. But there's other movie stars I will guarantee that are claiming they don't watch. And that's just BS. 100%.
And especially when you're on the path of your own development, like you have to assess, you know, like even before sending in some of my self-tapes, like I'll film it. And then if I have 48 hours before it needs to be sent, I will go back and rewatch. And sometimes I'll have a different emotional reaction to it. As of late, I've had the same emotional reaction as when I initially shot it, which is good, which means that I've ironed out a few things here and there. But it's always an interesting process, just allowing yourself to be and eliminating the ego and eliminating whatever preconceived ideas you have of yourself and just removing yourself from the equation. That's a fascinating and very interesting process to go through in terms of working in film and television specifically, because you're so up close in the camera that everything registers. And so an expression, every single unnatural expression is also registered. And the way that you eliminate those unnatural expressions is just by not thinking, just allowing yourself to feel.
You said, I'm going to wrap this up with something. I want to repeat something that you said. It's such a great phrase. When you are on the path of your own development, watching your work is essential.
Yes. Yeah.
It is essential. If you're uncomfortable with it, it's because you don't believe you. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out how to believe you. Because if you don't believe you, casting doesn't believe you, the audience doesn't believe you. And yes, when we watch ourselves, we know that we're just acting, and we can see when we're a little bit in our heads. Over time, when you watch your work, you can tell when the audience will be able to notice that you just popped into your head and when they won't notice.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't see everything. You see everything because you know you. If you're interested in classes, seminars, or private coaching, you can visit the website. Hope to see you in the gym soon.
thecinemagym.com for virtual one-on-one coaching for camera.